board meeting of the Hicksville Exempted Village School for February 17th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Iden?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Mazur?
Here.
Mr. Methvin?
Here.
Mrs. Carrier?
Here. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doesn't look like we have any visitors. So we'll get right to it. Mr. Bassett, you are up.
Hello. Yes, had a few snow days here. We've been busy plowing snow and salting. The weather forecast for the next few weeks looks nice again. Shouldn't have any snow coming down here anytime soon. On the 6th and 7th, we had a couple cancellation days, so our custodial department took advantage of that. Went around the building and sanitized every classroom with our electrostatic disinfectant gun. Every office, every classroom, the commons, the locker rooms, the gymnasiums, everything was all sanitized with a product that has a Mercedes disclaimer on it, kills every type of germ. We also, over those couple days, we went through and did a little bit of an energy upgrade to our our locker room building down the football field, and also the detached building behind the school. That was the old recycle building, and all the interior lights on both those rewired and got rid of all the ballast, and all those fixtures are all now LED. About half that project will be funded by AEP incentive money that we'll get back. So every fixture in the building went from having 4 32-watt bulbs in it to went from having 4 32-watt bulbs in it to having 2 10.5-watt bulbs. We have the same light output, so that was 100 bulbs that we swapped out and changed them to two bulb fixtures instead of 4 bulb fixtures. So save a little bit of money there for in the future also. Also, spring break, before you know, will be coming up. We've ordered all the air filters for all the heat pumps throughout the building, all the makeup air units. We'll be changing those out over spring break. We also have a mulch blower rented, and John and I will be going around over the week of April 20th, and we'll have a semi-load or semi-load and a half of mulch dropped off here. We'll go around and do all the mulch around the outside of the building, the State Route 2 sign, the main event entrance, and all the courtyard. We'll be blowing all the mulch in there. We also have been working on trying to get some prices for since we've been in the building, there's a lot of us not a big fan of the waterless urinals. And we do have water behind there for the sinks and for the toilets, and all the drains are already connected. So kind of working on a price of seeing what it would take to convert the 14 waterless urinals to watered urinals. And that would also include changing the urinal out, new flush valves, and tying in the water lines to all those. It'd be through 8 different pipe chases, just kind of see what kind of cost that would be to us. The idea for doing that would be the waterless urinals require an eco trap on the inside of them and a blue seal fluid that goes in them, plus our monthly maintenance on dumping an enzyme cleaner down it and Drano down it, try to keep the urinals from plugging up. Let's just say it's kind of costly over time. So for the amount of water an energy efficient urinal would use, we could save money on their water bill and all the custodial supplies we have to buy for that. So we're going to get some quotes on that. Before we know it, we'll be turning the water back onto the park buildings for baseball, softball, track also. And if any of you guys drove around the back of the building, our solar field is pretty much done to an extent. The fence has all been put around with the 3 strands of barbed wire. All the panels are in place. 2,106 panels are in place. They have rotated all the panels. It is a tracking system, so we'll track with the sun, start off in the east, rotate to the west, so we'll get the optimal amount of it'll produce the most electricity as possible. We've asked some questions on the inside of the fencing area, who's responsible for that. During the first 7 years while we're under contract, we do have a 25-year contract with them, but at the end of 7 years, we'd like to buy it out. We could buy it out. I know a lot of people want to know how much that cost us to put in. It cost us 0. We did not pay 1 dime for the fence. We didn't pay anything. Not 1 dime for any of the electrical work that's been done, none of the panels, none of the installation whatsoever. The company that funds the project and installs it, they get their money 2 different ways. One way is they get tax incentive money from the government for 7 years. We're a tax exempt organization. We do not get tax money, incentive rebates. So they get the tax money for the first 7 years for all the rebates, and then during the course of our contract, whether it's 7 years, we decide at a fair market value to buy it out at the end of 7 years. But during the first 7 years for sure, they get 8 cents per kilowatt that the array produces. The array is supposed to produce between 1.1 and 1.2 megawatts. We currently use approximately 1.7 megawatts, so we'll consume everything that it produces, and then the rest of the electricity we'll get from AEP off the grid. We do have a contract with them through an interconnect agreement that whatever we overproduce in the summer we're not using, it'll go back onto the grid, and we'll get that back from AEP through a process called net metering. So we paid no money for that field whatsoever. They did have to order 2 transformers, one of them for the solar array itself out of the field, and one for behind the school. It's the one that supplies all the power to the building. AEP is making them do a Y-to-Y configuration. Currently we're wide delta, so that means they got to pull all new wires, 4 wires instead of 3 wires that are currently in the conduit out to the road. They got to pull those old 3 wires out. They're going to pull 4 new wires in. They're going to have no power at our building on Monday, March 23rd, first day of spring break. They're hoping they can get it done, maybe in a whole day, but worst case scenario, they're going to finish up on the 24th is their fallback if it takes them 2 days. They'll remove the old transformer, dispose of it, set a new transformer, hook it all back up, and then they'll have to tie in the rest of the electrical out of the solar array and do their testing until it's back actually up and online. But they're hoping that they're done on the 24th, worst case scenario, and our whole building will have power again. So we did check with, there's a lot of different things to think about when we have no power to the building. It means your fobs won't work. It means possibly the walk-in refrigerator and freezer in the kitchen won't work. We did check with Willis Electric. They come out and verified that that is tied into our current generator system, which we weren't sure about. But anything from the sinks they're all electronic sinks and toilet sensors to flush the toilet. So there's a lot of different things that won't work. Our fish tank won't have an aerator pumping oxygen. You know, there's a lot of things we're thinking about over I guess spring break the first 2 days. So once they do have all the transformers swapped out and electrical done, they're hoping to have things up and going by the 1st of April. So they were planning on doing this over Christmas break, pulling a wire, and then they also talked about over Martin Luther King weekend. But it kind of got cold, and they were worried in case they did run into an issue. They didn't want to have 3 or 4 days of us not having power when we were supposed to be having school and we had home basketball games and programs going on in the building. So otherwise,
What's the
that's it.
plan?
Otherwise, if you had any questions?
What's the plan for landscaping within the fence?
I actually emailed him that today. They had always told me it was a slow growth grass. They have to maintain everything. It's to their advantage to make that system as optimal as possible. They come in and they're supposed to clean all the solar panels at least once a year just to get dust and dirt off of them. It does track. They do have to maintain the grass, whatever type of grass is in their vegetation. They do have to mow it. I do know Antwerp, completely different company, and they actually had a contract with Scott McMichael, who's a teacher of theirs. He mowed it 1 year, and then they actually hired a company to go in and just mow all of theirs. But they have to maintain everything inside the fence. We do nothing inside the fence whatsoever.
Any other discussion, questions? Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks.
And I have to take off because I got a council meeting. So.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, principal reports. Mr. Hunter.
All right. I'd like to start off by congratulating our 7th grade boys. We host the western side of the conference tournament. 7th grade basketball, and the boys were the champions. They defeated Edgerton, the big gym, on last Tuesday. And then last Thursday, we were able to squeeze in a game against Wayne Trace, and they were able to avenge an earlier loss in the season. So great win for the boys and an exciting end of the season for them. As kind of our admin team, one of our goals for Jeff and myself have been to get schedules done and completed before state testing. Because when we hit state testing, it's tough. So that being said, all of the information has been sent out to students and parents to start signing up for classes for next school year, to try to put all that stuff in the matrix. I just got an email while I was sitting here from Mrs. Chamberlain, and we're about 95% done with all the stuff the kids have turned in. We'll take all that information and start trying to put together a matrix to get us ready where we want to be for next school year. So a little bit ahead of schedule, what we normally are with that, so that's kind of exciting. This week, we are going to be having the middle school level and then the high school level as well. Some data dives again. We kind of made that a yearly thing. Mr. Clark and then as well as Chris Davalier from the ESC are both going to be coming in tomorrow and Thursday, and they're going to be working with teachers with data from that state test. kind of giving them the opportunity to look at their strengths, look at their weaknesses. They'll break down individual standards to know what they do well and what they don't. And then a big focus of this year is going to be on value added. Value added doesn't care whether you pass the test, don't pass the test, it doesn't mean a thing. What we're looking at with value added is how much growth did that kid have. They create estimated scores based on students' testing history from their entire career, and it says this is what this kid should get if they've gotten a year's worth of growth. So even a student who might fail the test, they may get a year's worth of growth or more. And that's what we're going to be looking at, because a lot of teachers struggle to understand the value added. We're going to go into it and look at individual kids. We'll look for trends. You know, are you somebody who teaches to the top end kids, but maybe you miss that lower end kids, or vice versa. So the teachers are going to get the opportunity to kind of find some of their strengths and maybe find some of their weaknesses, and then Mr. Clark will provide some follow-up that may help in those areas. So I'm excited about those data dives, and those will take place here this week. One thing that I've been kind of screaming about, I guess, for the last year or so, is an after-school program here. From the time that bell starts to the time that bell rings at the end of the day, we use those kids every minute of every day. They don't get breaks here, poor kids. And we utilize every minute we have, and we work our teachers hard. Well, as I've talked about it in different collaboration meetings and in different things that we've had, you guys know Mr. Farrell. Mr. Farrell's the kind of person who's going to take something and just run with it. Like, you think we've got a need? Well, I'm going to do something about it. Mr. Farrell has started kind of 2 small after-school programs this year as just a way to try to help. The first one is with 4th grade students. He's our STEAM teacher, and he teaches STEAM in grades 7 and 8, as well as the high school level this year. And he's like, I think we need to keep pushing it down, keep spreading what we're doing. So he put out a flyer to students, and he has about 18 to 20 kids twice a week, every Tuesday, Thursday, that he has come and stay for an hour after school, teaches them some STEAM lesson, gives them a little snack. They always have a challenge that they have to complete. Then he works with the Hicksville School Foundation to help fund this, and then he provides transportation using the school vehicle if they need to have it, which I think he transports 3 or 4 kids every day that he has to get done. So, you know, again, another example of a teacher who sees a need and says, hey, I'm going to do something about it. So it's an awesome program, and a major shout out to him for what he does. Well, as we continued talking, he goes, you know what, we just have a group of kids in the high school I think we're missing. That don't play sports, that aren't the ones who are going to get really involved. I want to help them. And through all of his stuff with STEAM, you know, you develop these relationships with other schools and what other people are doing. And he's modeled a lot of what we do after Napoleon. And Napoleon, along with a lot of other schools across the country, are starting this gaming. Gaming is becoming a pseudo sport for a lot of these kids. And so he has just started having some gaming opportunities for our 7 through 12 students. And what I like about that is he sticks around until 5 for that, but he opens it up, and they do homework after school. They help each other. It's kind of like a small little group that they get their homework done. All right, we're all good. Let's go ahead and do some of this gaming stuff. And so they're targeting a group of kids that maybe wouldn't have gotten targeted with sports or with some of the other things that we offer. But again, he's doing it free of cost. He's doing it out of the goodness of his heart, and doing a great job for us. So we really appreciate that, Mr. Farrell. And it seems to be both programs to be taken off and doing really well. The last thing I wanted to talk about was our in-service last week. You know, we had a couple of in-service days at the start of every school year, a couple at the very end of the school year, and then we call them teacher torture days in the middle, because it's just so hard to bring and provide professional development for so many different teachers, different grade levels, different subjects. It's not easy to do. And that's part of the reason we brought Mr. Clark in a couple of years ago when we did. We thought he'd be able to help with that. Well, Mr. Countryman always talks about we're a business, and we're producing kids. We're not producing soup like Campbell's soup, but you know, we still need to put out a good product. He always talks about that. Well, as an admin team, one of our discussions is Campbell's has quality control. Campbell's is discussing what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. How are we doing that other than just sitting here and talking? And so we decided to test the soup. And our PD this last week, we actually brought in students from grades 5 through 12, and actually one graduate. And we wanted to know what we're doing well and what we're not. I talked about it a little bit at one of my principal conferences, and they thought we were absolutely stupid. Just dangerous, opening it up to what are these kids going to say? I said, no, we're a good school. They're going to say good things. And Mr. Countryman kind of emceed it for us, and Mr. Clark worked behind the scenes to meet with the kids, give good questions, give thoughtful feedback, because they weren't just answering for themselves. They were representing their grade, they were representing their families, they were representing all of us, but we wanted to know the things that we struggle with, the things that we do well. And it was one of the most powerful PDs that I've seen put on, I think. The kids represented themselves so well. They gave great answers, well thought out answers. They criticized without knocking us down. They gave thoughtful feedback, ideas, suggestions. And like we said, we had kids from all walks of life. We had the athlete, we had the graduate, we had kids who don't play any sports, and we heard from all of them. I think everybody was able to take a few things here or there that these kids said that, man, that was something I really haven't thought of. And it was a great professional development, a great job of Mr. Countryman, and a great job of Mr. Clark, and I thought it was awesome. So that's all I have.
Mr. Slattery.
Hey, nice job. Appreciate that. And Mr. Countryman, he's right. It was a really good professional development. The kids that came through and their honesty, that's what made it great. You could tell they were nervous at first, but it was one of them things where it was going to be an awesome PD or it was going to be a disaster. And it ended up being pretty awesome. So kudos to those kids. All right, so I apologize. I've never used that device over there. I assumed it was like our other devices where you could connect wirelessly or connect a hard line, but it doesn't like me, so it is what it is. So the first thing I want to do is, I've mentioned in the past that I'm a part of the OASSA, which is the Ohio Association of Secondary School Administrators. They're a legislative committee down in Columbus, and you're going to be my assistant here if that's okay.
That's fine, Jeff.
So this one's going to be the first one we're going to talk about the class of 2020. So what I was planning on doing was I was going to share the graduation requirements and some changes that are coming our way. I mention this occasionally, usually in August, and we're starting to get some ideas now of the upcoming changes that I want everyone to be aware of. And you know, I think the state's intent is usually good, but they kind of, you know, fly the, you know, they're building the plane while they're flying it type of mentality. So the first flyer you're receiving is the class of 2020 flyer, and of course this year's students will be graduating under these requirements. And we've been, I want to say we're used to these requirements, but in all honesty, if you go back 3 years up until the class of 2023, we're actually going to be going through 7 different sets of requirements to graduate. So they've been changing it every single year on what you need to do. And the biggest problem is this, and this is no shout out to the state, I'm just telling the truth. They're making things so difficult and confusing that when you start talking about, you know, Hicksville and the Northwest Ohio schools, you know, these small towns where, you know, it takes a whole community to do this, you know, we're pretty successful and we have a few challenges every year to get everyone to graduate. But if you get down into some of these inner city schools and these bigger suburban schools, there's 35–40% of these kids that aren't meeting the graduation requirement set, so they make a mid-year change, and you know they get everyone as many to graduate as possible. Then they focus on that, and they make another mid-year change. So, you know, talking about the class of 2020 and the information there, it's pretty much been based on these end-of-course assessments we've been talking about, these 18 points out of the 35 tests. If you do not pass those tests and get those points, then of course you think of like our 4 county students. A lot of them do like an industry recognized credential. And then of course now they've thrown in, you know, the college and career readiness test, ACT, SAT. If you score high enough on those tests, they actually can count towards one of those end of course assessment test points, kind of override them a little bit. And then of course the additional options were you could go through I guess option 2, where if you do not earn the total proficiency points, there's career technical exams, there's the credentials, and of course there's a workplace experience. We actually had 2 kids this year who graduated in the class of 2019 that we were scrambling to get 250 hours of workplace experience. So we were collecting pretty much pay stubs from their employers the final couple months of school, trying to see if we could reach that point. So it's amazing. It's a different pathway for every kid. We're trying to not allow them to fall through the cracks, all that fun stuff. So again, the class of 2020, I'm not going to say we're used to that one, but we've definitely been preparing to get as many kids across the line using that method. Now, the second one is the class of 21 and the 2022. Okay, and this one here is a little bit different. It covers the basics, of course, as it states, where you have to earn so many credits. The high school minimum credits is 20 credits. We actually require 23 credits to graduate. State minimum is 20. And it says exactly where you need to have those credits. 4 years of English, 4 years of math. You talk about like your PE credits, science credits, all that fun stuff. Now, an adjustment for the next 2 years is that on the Ohio State test, they talk about those 18 points. You can still pass those tests, get those 18 points, and of course get the subcategories because you're required so many points, 5 in math, I believe 4 in math, 4 in ELA, and then it's 5 in social studies and sciences. So you have your sub scores, your total scores, your industry credentials, your college career readiness, and you have to show competency in one of 3 ways. Again, you could also do the 12-point industry credential, work-based learning, required scores and work keys, Ohio Means Job Readiness Seal. Option 2, you could enlist in the Army. And if you provide the proper documentation, they're saying, hey, you know what? If you're good enough to be in the Army, you're good enough to graduate with us. So we get that option. And of course, 3 is the complete college coursework. They're starting to allow College Credit Plus program courses to count as additional credit towards doing above and beyond. So it's almost like another seal, I guess. It's not the word they're using, but that's what it is. So the development is to look for these different seals now for the class of 21 and 22. And as you can see further down on the second page on the back, it talks about at least one of these 2 must be Ohio designed. And they talk about the Ohio Means Jobs, industry recognized credential, which is typically 4 county. College Ready Seal, meaning you've earned these points, you've got these College Credit Plus classes, military enlistment, citizenship, science, honors diploma, seal of biliteracy, technology seal. All these fun things we get to keep track of. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do it yet, but we're looking at ways to do this. And again, this is per student every year. We have to track this. So, as of I guess I should say last year, we're thinking, okay, all right, let's get these seals, let's get this tracking going, and then this year's came out. So there's a third document that you have. That's the class of 2023 and beyond. First off, again, you have your required credits. Again, we talked about those 20 credits you must earn to graduate. At Hicksville, again, I must state, we have to have 23 credits earned to graduate. Second, and I want to point something out. Do you notice there's like no graph about state tests and points all of a sudden? The class of 2023, the current freshman class, they are no longer required to take the ELA 1 test. All right? That's one of the tests that's going away. Currently, the state of Ohio is battling with the federal government about the geometry test. They're talking about removing the geometry test also. The only reason they haven't done it yet is because there's funding from the federal government that's tied to the geometry test, so they're kind of deciding how they're going to handle this and whether it's going to go away or not. So we actually sit around wondering every day if we're going to get that email saying geometry test for this school year will be dropped. Is it still possible? Yes. Could it be next year? Maybe. Who knows? But one thing that they did do is you'll notice that we go from the 20 credits earned for the entire high school career down to the second option, which is, or the second portion, which is show competency. And you notice it states earn a passing score on Ohio's Algebra 1 and ELA 2 tests. What happened to government? What happened to American history, world history, geometry, ELA 1? Well, we know they dropped ELA 1. Well, if testing is not your strength, they give you other options. They move on that quickly. I want you to know that they must score at least a 3 on Algebra 1 and ELA 2, plus these other options or additional pathway. The other tests are still going to be administered outside of ELA 1, which has been dropped. The reason those are being administered is because they're tied to value-added scores. They're tied to teacher evaluations. So now, I hope no kids are watching this. That's really bothersome of us. We've been battling this. It's like, okay, so now you're telling me that this kid has to take a government test to show that a teacher is doing a good job and to put it on your school's report card and provide an indicator, but it doesn't matter if they graduate. So it's kind of a dangerous scenario going on right now. So we're still dealing with the state, and we're still trying to figure out how this all makes sense. So anyway, continuing with the second option, or second part, show competency. Option 1. A 12-point industry credential, meaning 4 county kids. Work-based learning, meaning if you work 250 plus hours in a school year, you can also graduate because you're showing that you know how to work. Option 2, enlist in the military, and of course complete college coursework. And then this is where I'm getting to the last portion of this. is option 3, show readiness. We're going back to these seals. Kids are going to start graduating with diplomas that have seals on them. And the seals are going to be based on option 1 and 2, or potentially portions of option 1 and option 2. And when I say this, for example, the citizenship seal, remember how I talked about the government test not counting for graduation and the American history, world history not counting for graduation points? They won't, but if a kid scores well on those tests, they can get a citizenship seal that'll go on their diploma that states that they can graduate. Okay, now, if that's the only reason they want to pass the government test, so be it, I guess. But the science seal, they still take the biology test. Again, if they do well on that, they take so many credits of science, I guess they can pass that. You get into community services seal, fine and performing arts seal, student engagement seal. Those seals there are not designed by the state. Those 3 seals will be designed by local schools. Okay? Now, if you were in Chagrin Falls, or if you were in Cuyahoga City, or in Lucas, Toledo Public Schools, Lucas County, you have this giant district where they pay all these administrators and these offices to do all this stuff, okay? Believe me, I'm so looking forward to doing all this stuff, but at the same time, I try to work smarter, not harder. So we plan on stealing a little bit. We're working with Josh Clark, and you keep hearing his name, so he is actually doing something here and helping us out. Josh Clark, who's our ESC rep, who assists us as an administrator, we talked to him and said, listen, you need to do something at the ESC, get all 22 districts in our 4-county area together. Let's develop local seals that will be almost like a safety net to catch kids. Now, there are specific requirements that we must meet, but we know for a fact, looking at, I have Chagrin Falls is here, by the way, they have their community service seal, 75 hours of community service, recommended that students meet this total by completing 20 hours of community service each year in high school. They have all this criteria to do that. They have a fine and performing arts seal based on if you take 4 fine and performing arts courses, and you also participate in some sort of musical or theater program, you can get that seal. And then, of course, they also have a student engagement seal, which actually is a part of extracurricular activities, which are athletics and clubs and things like that they can participate in. So it's almost like you have your, I hate to say this, your academic side, your post-secondary side, and then we have this, beyond the classroom side of seals that the state's looking for us to try to capture all these students, place this nice sticker on the diploma, and of course, send them on their merry way. And I apologize, is it confusing? Yes. Is it a lot? Yes. And I just appreciate all my peers, including these two, because I know I talked to these two, Mr. Countryman, about this stuff, the other principals in the area, the ESC, 4-county. We're all working together to develop what's best for our kids. So the last thing I want to say is this is due June 30th of 2020 for the local seals. And the reason they have it due June 30th of 2020 is because they're telling us that if a student from the class of 2021 or 2022 is struggling to graduate and we can somehow align him with the class of 2023 standards, they're more than welcome to do that. Or if they come in and request that, we have to allow them to do that. So again, we're going to do our best to track all this and kind of keep it under control. So that's the first part of my principal report. Any questions?
Oh, I appreciate, I know it changes every year. It's been a nightmare.
And I don't mean to bore you guys with this stuff. I mean, it's hard
No,
because these are the things
what
that
I
are
wanted
behind
to
the
say was,
scenes.
It's important because, our 8th graders need to start thinking about this because they're going to be 9th graders and they need to start working on some of these things. And so they need to start lining those things up and not waiting until, their spring semester of their junior year to figure it out. So we appreciate you bringing this forward and bringing it up and making sure it is up front.
I appreciate that. And one thing I want everybody to know is, we try not to send a bunch of mail home to parents and waste, envelopes and stuff like that, because we know everything ends up in the trash. It seems like I know it does at my house when my kids bring things home. So, but this is something where the class of 21, 22, 23, I want to get this stuff out as soon as possible, but I need to wait till after June 30th, because if I can cause less confusion, I will do that. And then, I believe when the first group of kids that graduate, the end of course points, came through, we actually did a parent session. Jen, you were there. And again, we have 320 kids in the high school. You get maybe 30 parents. But I'm going to do that again. I want you to know that. And I'll be based on the different graduating classes. And I'll try to get, even if it's 5 parents, that's great. Those 5 parents will have their questions answered. So
Right.
that's my
And I
plan
think
there.
It spreads too.
Yeah.
When those parents leave and talk to somebody else, the knowledge spreads, and so we appreciate it.
Okay. All right, so I apologize for the longevity of that part. A few other hot topic items that just kind of stood out at us with the OASSA legislative group. Teacher residency program, that's kind of a headache. It's kind of a controversial bill. They're looking to kind of restrict it a little bit more, not restrict it, they want to limit it to what they're currently requiring, but at the same time, these legislators, they're pushing it. They want to keep it the way it is. They want it to be that, I think is it a 2-year program or is it a 4-year program? 4-year program. We're trying to get it to 2 years. They want to keep it for the whole rest of the program, all that stuff.
But generally, they're done after 3 if they do what they're supposed to.
Yes.
ahead of time.
But we're still trying to reduce the amount of time that's spent on that. School counselor hiring practices, they're in their 3rd hearing on this. A big one about this is the last 7-8 years in education, there's been such a change with the testing, with all these requirements and all these additional items. There's a lot of pushback from the counselors across the state stating they're doing a lot of things that aren't in their job descriptions. So just FYI, we may be required to revisit rewriting that and providing exact details of counselors and what they're supposed to do. I just think it's important to know that that could be coming our way. And again, as a principal, I know that we feel the same way, but you know what? You put your big boy pants on and big girl pants, and you do what you have to do to get the job done, and I think we do a great job doing that. So. Another thing that kind of caught our eye we were discussing is everybody knows about the fire marshal and everybody knows about the health department, health inspectors coming in. A big topic item we were talking about was this Ohio School Marshal program, and Mr. Countryman, I don't want to step on your toes on this and if you've been going over this or not, but they're talking about developing almost like this structure like the fire marshal, where they're talking about quarterly training for emergency management teams at the local level. They're talking about working with and requiring the local school districts to work with their police, fire department, EMT, et cetera, but they're going to have like a representative from the state coming to make sure that's being done. And the way they describe this, and I love this, okay, it says the chief school marshal shall be appointed by the director of public safety at the state level and shall serve at the pleasure of the director. The director of public safety, who selects the chief marshal, will then select 16 regional school marshals and then any additional necessary staff to serve the schools. And at that point, they're not going to come in here and tell us what we have to do locally. For example, we have our security team, our safety team here, and it's unique to what we think we need and want. Edgerton has their unique situation. Antwerp has their unique situation. They cannot dictate what we're doing locally. It's more based on, like, again, working with the fire marshal. They're going to come in and verify and make sure that you're doing these things. That's what we got out of that. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But if it's at its 3rd hearing already, that's usually means that it's coming our way. So just FYI on that piece. Of course, we're continuing to push to reduce course assessments. And then another big thing is we're trying to get the state to require all public schools and non-public schools to meet the same accountability and reporting standards, because again, our report cards will come out, all these assessments, everything we're being held accountable for. Private schools, charter schools, online schools, they're not held up to the same standard as us. And we're trying to get, if they're getting the same money we're getting, they should be held to the same standards as us. So,
Can I say something on that? If you guys haven't already, I highly recommend you to contact your state legislators because of the Ed Choice ballot. It was rejected last week, and so they're going into hearings again this week. So it's exactly on that aspect, and I contact, if you guys haven't done so already, to contact them.
yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And I actually contact my representatives usually at least once a quarter. Being a part of the OSSA, we have like naturally generated letters that they provide us, and we just plug our names in there, type in a few extra comments, forward them. So, and it's important because if we don't reach out and talk to them, it's falling on deaf ears, so we appreciate anyone that's doing that. Just kind of an update on the GMC executive meeting. I know that everybody's probably heard that there was a vote to remove Holgate. Holgate was a member of the GMC for a long time, I think since like 1964. We look to continue our rivalry with them. We want to continue to have them on our schedule. It was a tough decision, but each school in our district did what was best for their district. It wasn't my vote. It was my vote talking to Mr. Countryman, Mr. Hunter, the coaches, the athletic directors, and we all took it very seriously, and it was tough. But in the end, we felt like we did what was best for our conference, and of course, in our opinion, as well, best for the district of Holgate. So with that being said, this week we're actually meeting as athletic directors and principals all together to start discussing adding a team to our conference. So, and I'll keep Mr. Countryman in the loop on that. And again, we're taking this very seriously, and it's a big step for our conference to, again, get back to 8. That is an important number for us. Again, Mr. Hunter hit it up earlier. Principals are busy with evaluations, IEP meetings, testing, test prep, end-of-course assessments, and of course scheduling. It's always amazing, especially watching the numbers that move through our school and the effects it has on our scheduling. But it's always an exciting time too, because it's like we're already planning for 2020, 2021. So it's been great that our kids actually in the high school side, it was the quickest turnaround of kids getting scheduled ever. They actually, because they're used to doing it online now, it's their third, fourth time doing it, so they did a great job of getting that in on time. The junior ACT, which is required by ODE, will be administered on Tuesday, February 25th at the First Church of Christ. We thank them for hosting that. We like to take that off-site, make it serious. It's quiet. There's no bells, kids in the hallways. We want the kids to do well in that ACT. Current sophomores are still waiting patiently for four county Career Center acceptance letters for the 2020-21 school year. We're looking forward to the kids getting into the programs that they're choosing. We actually have a large group of kids this year going out there. I believe our current sophomore class has 67 students, and if I'm correct, I believe 29 of those 67 kids applied to 4 county. So that is actually a large percentage of kids from a Hicksville class. So good luck to them, and I hope they get the course of their choosing. The final College Credit Plus meeting will take place on Monday, February 24th at 7 p.m. at Northwest State Community College. That's required if you plan on doing CCP courses. If not, you must meet with your counselor individually. I plan on attending this one because I missed the last one. But again, College Credit Plus courses, you must complete a meeting with a counselor or at the group meeting and complete a letter of intent to participate, which is a requirement by the state to do that also. And there's a cutoff date of that. Coronation will take place at the Huber Opera House on Saturday, March 7th at 6 p.m. I know that's only a couple weeks away. I can't believe we're talking about March already. And then, of course, the senior trip to New York City takes place March 18th to the 21st, so everybody's excited about that. I apologize for all that. Thank you.
How many kids are we going to have going on the senior trip? Any
Actually,
idea yet?
it's a pretty good number, actually.
Good.
We really pushed it this year. We limited their options a little bit. And I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but this class has, I think, 72 kids in it. And I think we have 38 kids attending, which is the biggest class we've had since the class of 2015. So that's good. And we're still kind of making some minor adjustments.
One bus?
One bus, yeah. But we're still making some minor adjustments moving forward. And I hate to say it this way, but we're telling them, if you do a great job of fundraising, it's New York City. Second option is Chicago, third is Cedar Point. Because I'm just telling you, we lose as soon as we start saying, where do you want to go? I bet we lose 10% of our kids because the place they picked didn't get picked. And that's not the goal, is to get to go where you want to go. But it's more about the camaraderie and that last time spending time together. And they're teenagers; they tend to forget that sometimes. So, I think we're heading in the right direction if we're going to continue doing this.
Sounds like just a couple years ago, do we have 12 or something? I mean, it was.
You know what? I thought about that, and I realized the one thing that happened that year that was different is Mr. Hunter took them on their senior trip. That's the only year I didn't go. So I started to think, well, maybe it was this guy. I'm just kidding.
No.
It didn't help that half of Tennessee was burned to the ground before they went down there because they went to Gatlinburg. So, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slattery. Ms. Kaufman.
Second grade students just completed their gifted testing. This included 8 days of testing, so a big thanks to Erin Montgomery, Robin Chamberlain, and our second grade teachers. Third grade music program is scheduled for Thursday. We will be having a Grandparents' Day performance at 9:45, and then we are inviting those individuals to stay for lunch. We have 80 people reserved. And then that evening will be the concert for the parents. And so huge thanks to Ms. Rodish for her hard work, our third grade teachers, and Sean Bergman for their flexibility with their schedules, Eric Bassett and Ruth Ann, along with their crews, for making this possible. It takes quite a few individuals to successfully put together these programs. I just wanted to give a big shout out to our current PTO committee. And those individuals include Becky Zedike, Trista Franklin, Crystal Myers, Jen Kemple, Misty Gonzalez. I just went to the meeting on Thursday, and it's just in a very short amount of time, they've raised a lot of money, and they're just really partnering with the school, with teachers. I know Mrs. Spencer's going to be turning her classroom into Starbucks into Starbooks, and all day long they're going to be doing activities like they would be attending Starbucks. And they're helping with that, along with they're providing 2 $1,000 scholarships for seniors at graduation. And they're also just providing a lot of activities for families. We have Muffins with Mom scheduled for Friday.
Please pray for us.
Yes, we have about 400 individuals coming. We're hoping that many of those are the children that are already eating.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So, but they're doing that. They've also rented out the Bryan Movie Theater to do a movie night with moms and sons. They're doing a Princess Tea in April again. They're looking for opportunities that they can pair with some of our, like the junior class, and providing the daddy-daughter dance. But any opportunity that they can to partner with the school and with current groups that we have. So just a huge kudos to them, because they've just got a big heart and great passion. Some of our upcoming events: Family Literacy Night is scheduled for March 16th. It will be from 5 to 7. Sandy Brown just does an amazing job at this event, and it's going to be a science theme this year. She's bringing in a presenter for the students. It's a free meal. There's going to be pizza, lots of activities, a professional speaker, and just lots of prizes and lots of fun things for our families to participate in on March 16th. Our kindergarten and first grade program is scheduled for March 19th. Mr. Kohlmeyer will be getting out some information here this week about that concert. And lastly, we have kindergarten registration coming up March 12th and 13th. If you have a child that's going to be 5 by September 30th and haven't called the office yet to schedule your appointment, I encourage you to get a hold of Pam Slattery. We will be conducting our kindergarten registration this year at the school. There will be no classes for our kindergarten students those 2 days, so we can utilize the classrooms for the assessments. And we currently have 59 students registered for kindergarten registration. And as soon as we get those numbers, I hear the phone ringing and Pam saying, well, we need this and this and this. So they just keep calling. So that's it from the elementary.
All right, thank you.
I love the PTO connection. That's been a weak part for us for a while.
They truly have been amazing.
Awesome to those moms that are doing it.
Yes.
That's great.
That's great. Denny, you are with us tonight.
Yes, hello everyone. Fort County report, the basic report from there is that Mr. Ron Crawford is our new president. He is from the Defiance County ESC office. Ron's been with the Defiance County ESC for quite a few years. He was vice president, now our president. And then Marcy Burns, Marcy is from Napoleon, is our vice president now. So no other real updates to give you from Fort County from that standpoint. Everything's running, the budget's on schedule. In fact, we're ahead of budget. There's just, everything's running smooth. There's really nothing else to report on with Fort County. Then last month I could not make the meeting to give the presentation from the month before that. It said that Fort County had done for you. So when the board and the administration had made the visit over to Fort County and did the tour with Mr. Meister, Mr. Tim Armitage's class in a smart lab, they made this for the Hicksville school, and they would like to present this to the Hicksville school system. So it's cut out. Their CAD design people did the CAD design on it. And then the smart lab did all the programming into the plasma table, cut out the part for you, and then the auto body shop did the painting on it. So they would like to thank you for coming over and doing the tour, and they would like to have the Hicksville School District to have this. And you got a soaring eagle, in God we trust.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
Unless you guys have any questions for me, Ms. President, congratulations.
That's awesome.
And they
Thanks,
gave us
Denny.
such
Yeah,
nice
thank you.
posters too, wow. So nice. Cute, right? Yeah,
That's cool.
That is.
it is cool.
I know they were really glad that we came over to him. I mean, he's
know.
mentioned it multiple times at our superintendent meeting, and he just was,
They were very, words really can't put in how they appreciated you guys all.
he said he's never had a full board come and do that ever, so.
They showed great, too. They showed great. It was a pleasure
Yeah,
going.
probably show off what they have. They have some really great things going on over there that really help these kids that were a different path, than maybe the typical path, but the trades and skills that we need, for all of us, right? For all of us, so.
And that's so exciting to hear that we have so many sophomores who have applied to go. That's great, great news. Thank you, Denny.
Thanks,
Thank
Denny.
you.
Thanks, Danny.
And Mr. Farrell's gaming thing, that was one of the places we got to visit when we were over there. They had just been to a gaming conference that weekend, like a
Competition.
Contest,
yeah,
competition thing.
like a statewide.
It's becoming bigger and bigger, I know that.
It is,
for sure.
yeah. Right, Mr. Countryman.
Yes. A couple things here. First off, I know Eric is gone, but I wanted to show you this. So this little piece here, you see that? Is a sensor in the bathroom where you push the little button, and they've had these break right here. They get pushed, and they're plastic, and they break right here, and then it goes inside, and then it doesn't operate right. They can't flush it. So he checked on the price of those, and that little plastic piece, you can see how big it is, was $216.57 a piece, and they needed 10 of them, which would be $2,165.70. So this is actually a shout out to Eric and John to show their value, because you know how they're always thinking. So it looks like this, obviously, and then what they did is they found this little metal piece here and put it across the back of this, and then screwed it into this piece, fixed it so that the screws lined up perfectly, and their cost went from $216.57 to $1.43. So the total cost was $14.30 instead of $2,165.70. And the reason I make such a big deal about it is I know, Eric came to the board here a couple years ago about getting John on as an assistant, and this is just one little example of what these guys do that saves the district a lot of money. And I thought that was pretty cool. He's showing me that, and he says, how much do you think that part costs? And I said, oh gosh. I said, I bet it's a lot, like $30, $40. I couldn't believe it, so.
Can I say something about Mr. Bassett? So it was at the pancake supper, and I was talking to a board member from a local school, and they had come over and toured our facility, and were amazed with our facility, but they were more impressed with Mr. Bassett and talked very highly of him. So I reminded him that they could not steal him at all.
Yeah.
But he said that they wanted to send their maintenance people over. And I said, well, come on over. I said, our administrators have teachers and that come over all the time to learn how we do stuff here. I said, contact us. We would be more than happy. Have your maintenance people come over and learn from Eric because he's the best.
Yeah.
And so they were all excited.
That's right. And that, we do have people ask about that department, and obviously the teachers, we've had that before too. I know there were teachers that wanted to come to our in-service the other day, but I did tell them no on that one because I didn't know for sure how that was gonna go.
Good call.
Yeah, but it was a real good success. The academic and athletic facility, the bidding is going out this week. The posting goes out this week. I just found that out today, and so we'll be getting that posted on our website. Rodney sent me the information today, late this afternoon, so we'll get that on our website, and then several of the papers in the area. I thought perhaps, you guys let me know your thoughts, but I thought we should do Bryan, Defiance. I think we should do Fort Wayne, and our local paper, and then of course our website. And then the architects also obviously post that too, that goes out to a big area as well. So that will be posted this week, just so you know. And I want to say that bids are due back by March 18th. Does that sound right? I think it
Seems
was
like that's what
March
you said
18th.
before.
And then they'll get opened after spring break.
Okay.
At noon after spring break. I don't know exactly the day, but that's all in the advertisement, so. And then I also wanted to let you know that I know this has been a topic of conversation here at the school for quite some time. We've been working with our legal counsel and Neola on getting the board policy put together for the LifeWise Academy program and its potential implementation here at Hicksville. And I was going to have that on this month. And I did talk to Rick Straley about it and told him that it's not going to be on today because under the advisement of both of those groups, our legal counsel and Neola, with the undecided factor of whether or not it's going to happen or when it's going to happen yet, they said don't approve it so you know for sure when it's going to be and if it's going to take place. So I pulled it and I let Rick know that. And I wanted to mention a few things. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work on this here. So like any new program, there are pros and cons that you have to work through when you want to set up a new program like that. And we've met with Rick a few times to get information about their program and how it works for them and what's going to work then best for us and for our kids. So working with LifeWise Academy, I've been working with my admin team too on this a lot, that it could be a great partnership if it's done collaboratively together, so that we are, and we're certainly willing to work with them and to work those details out so that it works for both LifeWise Academy and it works for Hicksville schools and what's best for our kids. Obviously, there's some concerns with any new program. One of the big ones for us is scheduling, how we can make that work. Our specials are 40 minutes long, so by the time students would leave our building and return, they would probably only have about 30 minutes with LifeWise Academy, and that depends on where their building is located, how close to the school it's going to be. And is that enough time for LifeWise to meet with the students for it to be beneficial for them? That's one of the questions that we're trying to work through. Another concern on our end is not to interfere with our current curriculum of our specials teachers in particular. Because if we incorporate it into our specials time, then that actually, for 1st through 4th grade, it would actually take away approximately 20% of the time that they meet with their kids over a 9-week period. So those are some things that we want to try to get worked through. So what we'd like to propose is an after academic programming for grades 1 through 4 for from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. And we feel this could be really beneficial for LifeWise Academy and Hicksville schools. There's definitely a need, as Andy spoke earlier, about some of the programs that Nathan's got going, but after school programming, we don't have like a YMCA or Big Brothers and Big Sisters anymore, or those types of programs, so something like this could really catch some of those kids and get them. We also thought that, if doing it at that time of the day, LifeWise Academy could actually use our building at no cost. So they wouldn't have to purchase a property, they wouldn't have to worry about taxes, utilities, restrooms, or the upkeep of a property. We also thought that perhaps, because if that would end at 4, our bus routes end at 3:45 to 4 o'clock, and we might be able to work out some kind of a deal with transportation that would be real beneficial for them also in getting the kids home. We could possibly work that out somehow. And we feel like that'd be a win-win for both LifeWise Academy and for Hicksville schools. And when we are thinking about this whole thing, I was applying it to, Andy mentioned this, like the Ron Clark Academy. That was had a huge impact on Hicksville schools. And when I think about all the programming that they offer at Ron Clark Academy, it made me think about how much of their programming we do not do here at Hicksville. Because it wouldn't work for us to do all of the programming that they do at Ron Clark Academy. what we did was take bits and pieces of a fantastic program from the Ron Clark Academy. We made it our own, something that worked for us here at Hicksville. Do we have the same results that Ron Clark Academy does? No, we don't. But without a doubt, Hicksville Schools is a better place because of the concepts that we've picked up there and brought back to Hicksville. We made it our own, and we made it something great for us here at Hicksville. So not all communities are the same. So when starting a new programming such as this one with LifeWise Academy, we need to pick and choose what works for that community. We can work collaboratively with LifeWise. We can see us working collaboratively with LifeWise Academy, taking some of their strategies and concepts and mixing them in with some of our strategies and concepts, something that would be great for our students, our school, and our community. And we look forward to speaking with LifeWise Academy to see if any of these ideas would be of interest to them. So, yeah, I mean, we've given this a lot of thought, and we think it could be a win-win for both groups if we do it right, and something that would work for both, because there's definitely a need for some programming right there after school. So,
Keith, something you said made me curious about what happens on 2-hour delay schedules with specials. How does that work?
they're shortened, aren't
Well,
they?
yeah, they're shortened, so they'd already be a half hour, right? Is that what happens to, or do you stay on the same schedule, they're just shortened?
No, they're shortened, but they get a half hour.
Okay. The same as other classes then, right? Okay. I was just curious. I couldn't remember from when Raina was little what time amount that they got and how that worked.
So if, just thinking ahead, if it were to be an after-school program, would we still need to do the same type of board?
I don't think we'd have to approve the policy because my thinking was that from the 3 to the 3:15 time, that could be when they do their snack. And as long as they don't do any of their religious piece till after 3:15, then no problem. It wouldn't be any different than when we did the Sunshine Club. That's kind of how they did that. They did their snack first. Well, that actually started after school, but I think kind of when we did that, it was a little bit different because we were...
They went the first bus loop, though.
Right.
So we did still have kids in the building.
Right. But it was for those kids, but still, yeah. I think it would be best if we didn't do any of the religious piece part of it till after the 3:15 part. Then I don't think we'd have to approve that policy at all.
So LifeWise Academy doesn't do any after-school programs. That's not part of their doctrine. So this group would have to basically form their own.
Yeah, does it have to be LifeWise Academy? I mean, we have a great community that comes up with great programming on their own. We could pick and steal parts and pieces from that and make it our own on the same type of concept as theirs. Now, I don't know if they'd be willing to do that, or maybe they'd be willing to do it the way we're wanting to. If they don't, then it's not going to work. I think it's just, might as well say it. It's not going to work. We're not going to do it. They weren't willing to bend and give with us any on that, so we were trying to come up with an idea of how we could make that work for both groups, and that's kind of what we came up with. We think would work for both groups.
I think, you're looking for a compromise, and because, you recognize that it's a great program, and hopefully this is something that they can get behind and say, hey, you know what, we can make that work too.
I know that's not their belief, but how do they know it won't work if you don't try something new? I mean, we try new things.
Well, I think their concern is that it won't reach as many students. It won't have the impact.
I think the kids will talk to each other, and the ones that are going to it, saying, hey, they're enjoying it, they're having fun, they're learning. Probably other kids will
And it'll
join
grow.
in. Yeah.
And I think, when we talk about religion, if you can save one, the program's worth it.
Well, since it's not compulsory, you're probably going to have roughly the same base of kids interested in it regardless, especially if transportation, you don't think so?
I mean, first through fourth grade is, most of that's gonna be dictated by the parents. I mean, the parents are gonna say, hey, you know what, I want you to go to this, or not. I think that's gonna be once you get up into the older grades, you know, then, you know, the kids have a little bit more say in the family, and they may say, I don't wanna do that, you know, and then they may have sporting events that impact it, but, you know, first through fourth, there's really not as many extracurricular type things going on, so.
And adding the transportation piece in, I think, could be really beneficial with it.
Oh, if I, as a
Absolutely.
parent, and, you know, to say, hey, you know, we'll make sure we get the kid home, I mean, that's
That's a
phenomenal.
make or break for a
Yeah,
lot of
exactly.
families. So, okay, well,
Okay.
we'll see.
Yep.
Any other comments? Okay. Moving into the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Second.
Steph? Galen, anything to be added or removed?
There are a couple of
No,
addendums.
just the
that
addendums.
we-
Okay. Roll call, please, then.
Mrs. Mazur?
Yes.
Mr. Methvin?
Yes.
Mr. Iden?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Carrier?
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Can I have a motion for the minutes and financials?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Craig and Minda, thank you. Okay, minutes from the organizational meeting on January 13th, minutes from the regular board meeting on January 13th, and minutes from the special board meetings on January 20th, 29th, all of 2020, and January 31st, 2020. Treasurer's consent agenda to approve the cash reconciliation as of January 31st, 2020, approve financial statements for January 2020, approve amended official certificate of estimated resources for fiscal year 2020 as presented, the total general fund resources of $14,010,463.47, and total resources of all funds for $24,429,052.52. Approve fiscal year 2020 amended permanent appropriations as presented, total general fund appropriations of $10,797,420.51, and total appropriations of all funds of $19,594,706.34. Approve resolution number 2020-03, resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor as presented. Approve the following then and now certificate for vendor Missiondoa Conference Center in the amount of $14,287 for 6th grade camp. And then finally, to accept the following donations: $500 from an anonymous donor for Noah Carrickson Scholarship Fund, and $920 from various donors for baseball in memory of Lee Peter. Discussion.
Just a second.
I thought since you had some handouts here.
I'm checking on something here real quick. He's got cut off. I wanted to mention, recently, CD with Farmers and Merchants was cashed in. Primary reason for that was just cash flow with the project coming up, in order to make sure we have available cash flow for the project. Also, currently, liquid cash is kept in Star, Ohio, and the ICS program through First Federal. And those rates, First Federal pretty much goes with what Star is doing. Star's rates are just I think 1.77% right now, which is higher than what the renewal of that Farmers and Merchant CD would have been. So it kind of served two purposes. The main one is to make sure we have cash flow available for the upcoming project. Second one was to increase interest rate. The difference about it, though, is if you got a CD, you lock it in. You lock it in for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever, whereas Star and the ICS will move. So there is something to be said about that. The bond fund is is at a lower amount right now, which is typical. It's a timing issue. We just paid off installments on the bonds just recently, and then in March or so, we will get tax monies in, and that will build that fund up. So the amount that currently is in there is $80,000, which is right where it has been the last couple of years at this exact same time. So I have given you a copy. There's actually two things. There are monthly fund balance reports. It's a history, goes back quite a while. One of them is food service. You will see in fiscal year upper left hand side, in this report like this, right here, I handed those out. I highlighted those. The food service at the end of January has a balance of $2,600. That's up considerably where it has been the last 2 years. So hopefully we're starting to trend in the right direction, as we were trending in not so right of a direction. As of we speak today, we are up a little bit on that, but upcoming payroll is going to affect that. Hopefully by the time we have all receipts in, expenditures for the month of February, that we are operating in the black again. So
I asked about it because I was kind of surprised. I was shocked when I looked
I
at the numbers.
don't really know what all that is. Some of it could be a little bit of timing of things,
Okay.
maybe receipt-wise. One of the things that has, I think, affected this line item to a certain extent, as more time goes by, more people are using RevTrack to pay their fees for their lunchroom dues and fees, and there's about a 3.5% charge to use RevTrack, and the lunchroom's eating that. So the more people that go from paying with cash to paying through RevTrack, that's going to increase the cost. Now that's taking away from the fund balance, but that's one of the items that has, I think, been affecting that in a cash balance negative manner. But right now, obviously, and if you look back, you can look at December, you can look at November, October. This year, we have been running positively compared to last year. Even though at times we are in the red, it's still looking better than it did a year ago. I'll have to do some more research and try to find out why that's happening and make sure we continue, if it's something we have control over, so it continues that way. The other one in front of you.
Hey, Mike, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You just mentioned a 3.5% fee and using RevTrack. I've never heard of that before. So what all is paid through RevTrack? Is it just our school lunch account? So I sit here and think about, we're getting parents to pay 6th grade fees, senior trip. I mean, we're talking huge amounts of money.
Yes, it's
I'd like to know what all goes to
school
RevTrack.
fees. There's school fees and Square. Square has a charge too, depending on if it's swiped or if it's punched in. It's a different dollar or percentage. So on our Square and our RevTrack, it's my understanding the administration of the board somewhere along the line determined or decided that the school district would cover that cost. Some places it's the other way, where the cost of administering through the RevTrack is done by the individual. And then some programs that you can do this, it's basically a dollar amount per transaction. Where ours is currently set up, it's a percentage of total dollars. So for example, if you have a senior trip payment of $500 and it's 3.5%, you got 3.5%, that's $17.50. So that's one thing. I know Jeff Schaefer and I have had some talks whether should we continue with RevTrack or should we look at somebody else. But that's one reason why you probably don't see that, and many people aren't probably even aware of it, because the school district is taking that cost. But there's the senior trip, there's student fees, 6th grade camp, I think some of that ran through there.
The computer fees.
The middle school musical, the high school musical is thinking about it, the computer fees, the laptop. So there's a lot.
I mean, you're talking probably a few $100,000.
It's a lot of money.
A year, 3.5% that we're just giving back. That bothers me.
It'd be interesting to know how much it would be
I'll
on a
second.
yearly basis. I don't know if that's an easy calculation to do or not.
Well, there's, yeah, that wouldn't be that hard to see what we have been spending. But like lunchroom last couple of months has been $15,000 to $20,000 is what we've collected through RevTrak.
I think half of that was from my family, by the way.
Well, about time you caught up.
Those extras,
Oh.
yeah.
I think I put money on it, like, I bet 3 times
Every
a week.
week.
So I got another
You got hungry
25, another
kids.
25. another-
Yeah.
A lot of cookies, I think.
They did have cookies one day. So, that is one thing, is are there some other programs that maybe would be more cost effective? And then, you know, as I said, the current model is, school district pays for that cost.
That's crazy. That's a lot of
Um,
money. I never knew.
I have several places that I charge, and it says if you use a credit card, there'll be a 2.5% fee.
I mean, that's what we do at the
Yeah.
But
public.
lots of, I see it lots of times.
I wrote a check out today for the News Tribune, and if you call in and use your credit card, there's a $2 charge.
Uh-huh.
Or you write a check and you send it in, you
Yep,
know? I
that's
mean, the downside is you start writing checks, now you have somebody here that has to process them, you
Right.
know? So, I mean, you know, there's a little bit of a difference there too, but
Well,
We
they've been
could
doing the
switch
rev
the
track
charge.
for what, years before
Yeah.
me, so. we
To
should
see
look
what
at
the
something
cost of
else.
Woodens could be on that would be very interesting.
Say what?
To see what the cost of Woodens on that would be very interesting to see.
Uh-huh.
Just
Yeah,
to see
okay.
what
But I
the,
think it might be a good
That would-
idea to see if there are
I
other
agree.
options that are more
We
cost
could
effective.
turn it around to the person instead of us.
Right.
And if it's per transaction, then that gives more control to our parents in our community, because then, you
Right.
know, they're looking to make a lunchroom deposit. Do I want to, if it's, let's just say $2 charge, do I want to put down $10, or do I want to put down $100? Either way, it costs you it costs you $2, but if you do $10 10 times, it's going to cost you $20.
Uh-huh.
So, but with the percentage method, it's the same percentage, basically what we're getting across the board. So, anyways,
Interesting. Thank you.
and what I have done so far is like the lunchroom is eating that cost, but when it comes to the laptop fees, the student fees, general fund has been absorbing that cost. The middle school musical absorbed the cost, and actually had an email this afternoon to Mrs. Gherkin that, you know, that she's considering the idea that she may need to talk to you more about it, because I wasn't involved in how that got set up, but she was interested in doing it with the high school musical, and I'd mentioned that, then, you know, keep in mind, if you're doing that, you know, budget that cost in, so, yeah, and it probably is. I mean, there's a lot of transactions,
Not if
Yeah.
it come out through the general fund, it wouldn't be.
So-
like-
yeah.
Out of the music department.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it is worth it, because it's nice not handling money because of some of the issues that we have to deal with. Because we've told our high school staff and secretaries not to handle cash anymore, because, you know, it's the accountability piece of, you know, because we've had kids come in and parents call us and like, you know, my kid brought $100 in and gave it to you. Where's that $100 at? It's missing now. You know, that kind of stuff happens. So we tell them to use RevTrak, or it has to be a check. And, you know, it goes in the envelope. And it is worth it. I'm just curious if there's a more competitive rate with a different group.
3.5, that just seems.
It's pretty stiff.
That just seems crazy.
I was gonna say, and I know they're not even doing it down in the elementary K through 6. Pam still does all checks and cash. She doesn't use the little square thing.
Okay, any other discussion before we have roll call?
I think I covered yeah, there was the
yes.
other one.
Athletic fund.
Athletic fund, you can look through that too. We've been looking pretty good historically. Actually, very, very good. The balance sits at the end of January. So, those dollars are there. We've already mentioned, you know, as far as other available dollars, maybe what we may or may not use as we go forward with projects. There is $3,900 in a athletic. Let me see here. a PI athletic fund. I'm not sure what the original origin of that was, but there's $3,900 there that as we look for projects that need to be funded, there's some dollars there. And then the Ohio High School Tournament Fund that is supposed to be zeroed out after each tournament. That money, for some reason, has been building over years. I think maybe it's just a matter of hasn't going into things to cover like rent, different things like that. There's $20,858 in there. So anyways, those are monies that I think the admin needs to look at with the athletic department and see, okay, how is our best way to spend those dollars?
Mike, Mr. Hall and I have been discussing that, and that one was kind of surprising. Like I said, it's kind of been rolling over. It was supposed to be zeroed out this year. So there are some projects on the athletic boosters we're looking at, and also keep in mind, and I just want to remind everybody of this, you think of like your revenue generating sports. The last 5-6 years, we've made some really nice runs in boys basketball, girls basketball. We've made the playoffs a lot of years in football. That extra ticket revenue, we have a pretty healthy athletic budget because of that. And Mr. Hall, he's very frugal. I'm glad he is. But we have to be careful not to try to spend that down because if we go through some rough years, you talk to even in the GMC, we raised official pay by $5 across the board. And if you look at every single game that's offered, JV, varsity, freshman, 8th grade, 7th grade, I think we figured out that ended up being about a $4,000 hit on the athletic department just to raise that. And you think of track, you think of baseball, you think of softball. I mean, I hate to say your freshman games, and those don't generate a lot of revenue, and some other districts really struggled with that, just that $5 hit per official. So I'm glad to hear we found some extra funds that we can use on some projects, but at the same time, I'm sure Mr. Hall will do a great job not spending all his money, and I'll be happy with that.
Are there any other questions? Comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yep.
Okay, roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Iden?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Mazur?
Yes.
Mr. Methvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Carrier?
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. I need a motion for the employment of certified staff.
I'll move.
Second.
Steph and Galen, thank you. Recommend to approve the following supplemental contracts for the 2019-2020 school year. AJ Clousing, head junior high boys track coach. Ryan Miser, assistant baseball coach, 40%. Lori Turnbull, head junior high girls track coach. Recommend to approve the following as a volunteer for the 2019-2020 school year. Lucas Smith, softball. Roll call.
Mrs. Mazur?
Yes.
Mr. Methvin?
Yes.
Mr. Iden?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
And Mrs. Carrier?
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. And we are going to slip in our addendum to the employment of certified staff. So I need a motion for the addendum.
I'll move.
Steph?
I'll second.
Craig, thank you. Recommend to approve the retirement resignation from Diane Culler as classroom teacher at the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year, and recommend to approve the retirement resignation from Loretta Mendenhall as classroom teacher at the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year.
I had a call over the weekend, actually last night, to call Diane back, and I was shocked when she told me what she was going to do. I completely understand why, because I'm a grandpa, so she's going to be a new grandma.
Aww.
And her kids asked if she would help with babysitting, and I'm telling you, there's nothing better. Minda can testify to that too. There's nothing better. So, two great teachers that are going to be leaving us. Loretta was hanging around till Diane went, and so Diane decided to go, and Loretta's going to go as well. So, two awesome teachers that have served our district well for many, many years. So they'll definitely be missed.
Big
Yes, they
shoes,
will.
big shoes to fill.
Yes. All right. Roll call, please.
Okay. Mrs. Mazur?
Yes.
Mr. Iden?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Methvin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Carrier?
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Need a motion for employment of classified staff.
I'll move.
Thank you, Minda.
I'll second.
Steph? Recommend to approve the following supplemental contracts for the 2019-2020 school year. James Egley, Assistant Track Coach. Phil Handy, Assistant Baseball Coach, 35%. Pam Payne, Assistant Track Coach. Jeff Schroeder, Co-Assistant Softball Coach. Mike Valena, Co-Assistant Softball Coach. Lucas Schroeder, Assistant Baseball Coach, 25%. Recommend to approve the following as volunteers for the 2019-2020 school year. Hernando Hasso, I was messing up the first name. Track, Phil Slattery, Baseball, Madison Siebenauer, Track. Recommend to approve the resignation from Twyla Thiel as classroom aide monitor at the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year.
Twyla's another one who's been here for a while. Her resignation came in a few weeks ago, but she's been a very good asset to Hicksville schools and helped out a lot of kids over the years. I think about one in particular that was here last year that she had for several years, and I don't know what we'd have done without her because she was awesome with him.
Appreciate all of them. And I think back to some of the discussions we've had about the people who are not employed as classified that go through all the steps and jumps and hoops to be coaches, and just shout out to them again. Thank you. And the volunteers who have to go through a lot of those same hoops. So we appreciate everybody. Roll call.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Mazur?
Yes.
Mr. Iden?
Yes.
Mr. Methvin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Carrier?
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Motion for other business.
I'll move.
I'll
Galen
second.
And Steph, thank you. Recommend to extend recognition to the Science Fair Advisor Kathy Laney, faculty members, and a host of volunteers for their work and dedication to the students in preparation for the Science Fair. Recommend to extend recognition and congratulations to the following high school students for their superior award ratings at the Science Fair held on January 10th, 2020. Kyler Baird, Chloe Gerhart, Serenity Graves, Emily Harmon, Renee Greenwald, Haven McAlexander, Abrielle Miller, Naomi Ritchie, Mariah Salinas, Emma Schumann, Addie Strubing, Emily Taylor, and Landon Turnbull. Recommend to approve a 4-day trip to New York City for the class of 2020. The anticipated dates of travel are March 17th through the 21st, 2020. Recommend to approve the school calendar for the 2020-21 school year. Recommend to approve the following resolution. Board of Education Governing Board Resolution authorizing the 2020-2021 membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Whereas Hicksville Exempted Village Schools has satisfied all the requirements for membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association, a voluntary unincorporated association not for profit, and whereas the Board of Education and its administration desires for the schools with one or more grades at the 7th through 12th grade level under their jurisdiction to be voluntary members of the OHSAA. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education that all schools listed on the reverse side of this card do hereby voluntarily renew membership in the OHSAA, and that in doing so the Constitution, bylaws, regulations, and business rules of the OHSAA are hereby adopted by this board as and for its own minimum student-athlete eligibility requirements. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the board reserves the right to raise student-athlete eligibility standards as it deems appropriate for the schools and the students under its jurisdiction. And be it further resolved that the schools under the board's jurisdiction agree to conduct their athletic programs in accordance with the Constitution, bylaws, regulations, business rules, interpretations, and decisions of the OHSAA, and cooperate fully and timely with the Executive Director's Office of the OHSAA in all matters related to the interscholastic athletic programs of the schools. Furthermore, the schools under the board's jurisdiction shall be primary enforcers of the OHSAA Constitution, bylaws, regulations, business rules and their interpretations and rulings rendered by the Executive Director's Office. The administrative heads of these schools understand that failure to discharge the duty of the primary enforcement may result in fines, removal from tournament, suspension from membership, and/or other such penalties as described by Bylaw 11. After all of that, I do have one question.
Out of breath.
You start
Right?
over again, I missed something in there.
No. When is graduation? 2020?
On the new calendar?
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend,
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's correct.
the 30th, I think.
Oh, it's up at the top, May 30th, okay.
And difficult calendar because of fair starting so late. Because we're not gonna start during Fair Week. We tried that once, so I'm not gonna go there again.
Yeah, so better.
Well, I was just gonna say, Craig, put it in your calendar now, because I think one time you forgot.
No, I didn't forget. It was,
You guys were gone or something.
it was a scheduled vacation.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay.
It also, it's not a very good calendar for retirees.
Well,
We have that. But it mirrors last year's.
Right. Well, and
You know, with following the fair and.
coming
the best
back
we
for
could
one
do,
day
right.
after the,
Two paid for them. That's
Right.
when I did it
well,
that way.
school
yeah,
later.
for the students.
No, that's a good thing. That's-
Yeah.
I'll never complain about that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Okay. Circle back around. Mr. Methvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mauser?
yes.
Mr. Iden?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
And Mrs. Carrier?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Anything for old business? We really have. We did discuss briefly today the board docs, and we're still looking into that and looking into some other options, and so we are still moving ahead with that, just,
Looking into it, yeah.
Yeah.
With Mr. Schaefer, we might be able to do something in-house that wouldn't, I'm not sure how that exactly works. I
He's
wanna
got a
wait-
lot of stuff on your plate, you know? I
Well,
mean,
it's
let's-
been pretty busy, but I also want to, I'm meeting with John Kaler, I believe it's this week or this week, I believe. And so I'll talk to him about that as well when he comes on Thursday, I think, so I should know more next month.
any discussion? Everybody out there looks half asleep.
I think that was directed at you, Jeff.
Nobody.
He woke up.
All 5 of you. Okay. Okay, well, we are going to be going into executive session for number 1. We will not make any decisions after executive session. It is 6:58 now, so say 5 minutes.
Yep.
So 7:05, we'll go into executive session.
Mr. Iden? Yes. Mrs. Mauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Methvin? Yes. Mrs. Carrier?
Yes.